And time now for the PIX Panel. So joining me this morning, PIX 11 political reporter Henry Rosoff and City Hall bureau chief of the New York Post, Bernadette Hogan. So good to see you both this morning. How are we doing?
Good morning.
So let's get into this with the migrant crisis in the city, right, playing out in real time, new developments that came out. Henry, you were out there at the Manhattan Hotel when many of the migrants decided to relocate. Now, I had the Immigrant Affairs Commissioner, Manuel Castro, on the morning show, the first Deputy Mayor, Sheena Wright, saying the entire ordeal is because of what they were saying was misinformation about the Brooklyn terminal. So many of them now went there. So what was the final straw to get them there? Was it the weather?
The weather played a very large part in it. I was out there last Wednesday when movement really happened. As it got colder, many of them did decide to board buses and go over the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal. The misinformation you mentioned is there's no heat, there's no hot meals, there's no access to get back to the city, which there is some public transportation. But for the last few holdouts, it didn't come down to misinformation. They did not want to be that far away. They didn't want to sleep head to toe, which they are still doing over in that shelter, which many acknowledge is not ideal, but a function of the emergency situation. And they were cleared out by police and sanitation workers, plain and simple, on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I did say if you want to clear up the misinformation, just allow the media inside to see it for themselves. They can report it out there, but they were saying privacy concerns, which is the reason for that. Bernadette, you reported on a poll that says the majority of New Yorkers want some of the migrants relocated upstate because the city is obviously running out of room, which we've heard some politicians talk about. Any chance of that actually happening? When I spoke to First Deputy Sheena Wright, she said maybe.
Right, it's a big maybe, because then the problem is, can these people work? But it has happened before. There are refugee settlements and now populations that are thriving in upstate New York, and it has helped boost the local economy. But again, it's whether or not these people can work, and also who would be funding them. Would it be state funds? Would it be federal? Obviously, in Kathy Hochul's budget, she said the state's going to commit a high of $1 billion to this massive crisis. But are the feds going to come in and add more money? I mean, Mayor Eric Adams has said this is already costing the city and will continue to cost the city billions of dollars for the years to come. So we'll see. They just need more space.
Yeah, and the big question about the dollars is, yes, we heard from Governor Hochul pledging that $1 billion, but the president was in town last week, and the big question, Henry, that I know you were asking was, did the mayor get a chance to talk to the president? He's been very critical about federal dollars. What was the response?
Well, the mayor said he focused his remarks on coordination and needing better coordination from the federal government to know who's coming and to better disperse migrants and asylum seekers around the country. The governor, though, made a little bit of news here. She said she had a specific dollars and cents conversation with President Biden, and he gave a very non-specific answer, saying federal help was coming, but he would not commit to a number, which was notable.
And migrants were just one aspect of the New York State budget, right? There was a lot of mixed reviews on the plan when it came to the MTA. Some praised the commitment to congestion pricing. Here we go with that conversation again. But opponents continued to press back on that issue, as well as the tax hike small businesses may see. So dare I ask this, what's the end result? Is there wiggle room, Bernadette, speaking with you, on how congestion pricing will move forward? Is a compromise in the works?
I mean, perhaps, but we've been talking about congestion pricing for how many years? And the MTA still needs more money, more commitment from the city itself, but there's no commitment to cut down on things like insane labor costs, like negotiation. If they came down on union contracts, that'd be one thing. We're also bundling when it comes to certain projects. Like the Post, one of my colleagues just reported on elevators that have been in the works for several years, and the price of fixing these elevators, I think it's about 8 over 4 stations between Queens and Brooklyn, it skyrocketed to the tune of $20 million more than when it had started. So unless cost control can be something the MTA is focusing on, New Yorkers and the city officials are going to be sour on this.
Yeah, it's going to be a big to be continued on this one, right? I'm sure we'll talk about congestion pricing again, but what's a panel discussion without bringing up George Santos? It was Groundhog Day last week, and I feel like that's what we're in each time we talk about this. Here we go with the headlines, okay? The FBI investigating allegations that he defrauded a veteran, petition with 100,000 signatures asking him to resign, delivered to his Queens office, and they continued to calls to investigate his campaign finances, and in an uncharacteristic move, the usually defiant Santos said he would step away from his committee assignments. So what comes next? Henry.
But wait, there's more. It's
right.
a bad infomercial. This is what I've been telling people when they ask me about this on the street, because they end up covering it a fair amount. Well, what comes next is the FBI investigation into this incident involving the veteran and his dog, and whether or not Congressman Santos back in 2016 defrauded that veteran of money to save the dying dog Sapphire. That's very serious. That will move very quickly. We'll find out if there are charges relatively soon. All the financial investigations, which Congressman Richie Torres of the Bronx has been pushing for with the SEC and other organizations, that'll take some time. And in the meantime, there's real question about if the congressman can do his job, not even serving on committees right now.
Bernadette, last word, 20 seconds here. Richie Torres has been very vocal on social media, Is a resignation at all in the possibility in cards here when he doesn't really have a responsibility if he's not on a committee?
Right. Santos has said he's going to continue to serve. I mean, at the end of the day, he can have everybody step away from him, including his own party, which they have, especially on the local ground level, Nassau County. But he'll stay, I'm sure, unless he changes his mind. He hasn't given any indication that he will resign.
Yeah, because he does have that floor vote, right? And that's a very important
bargain leverage.
Very important, especially for McCarthy. He needs that vote.
Exactly. Bernadette, Henry, good to see you. Thank you for being here this week.